if it dissolved down into individual mathematical units. That's why life must start in water. That is not in the children's books. And it's the most important thing. It should be the first thing in the book. And it's not there. The universe is mathematical and assembles according to the best mathematical pattern. Just makes the best choice. If there's a better choice comes along, it'll take that one. Life is quantum machinery. Now we're getting somewhere. Life is quantum machinery. It's a system of cycles and gradients, the same as the solar system. Now, the big mistake which is taught in all universities is that quantum behavior is just for small things. Classical behavior is for very big things. And this, we ignore it. We pretend it does not exist because we can't fit it into anything else. But now if I say there's a relationship between forces, you must have three different kinds of behavior. Not small and big, but simple and complex. And one in the middle, made of these two. A quantum entity shows quantum behavior. A system shows non-linear dynamical behavior. And in the middle, classical behavior, the Earth and the Moon, just two objects, always two in the middle. This is a gradient. It's called glycolysis. You don't have to know what it is. It starts with glucose, and the electron has to fall down the gradient. Now you can see there's little loops, but it always has to end up down here as pyruvate. This is used by every living thing on the Earth. It's a gradient. It's a quantized gradient of steps. Think of the water cycle. It uses gravity. That's an analog system. Water all falls down. There's no steps. It just all comes down together. But on the quantum level inside the cell, steps. Each one a slightly stronger magnetic force, electromagnetic force than the last one. And you can get children to make these. You give them 10 magnets, and you pass a steel ball from one to the next, and they put the magnets in order, of the strongest to the weakest. So, the Krebs cycle, used by all aerobic organisms, every one. And that tells you it's right back at the beginning of the simplicity of the start of life. It's right at the start. This gradient from simplicity to complexity is how you must teach it to children. It makes sense. This molecule here, it's one of my favourite molecules. It sounds like a stupid thing to say, really, but I just love it. It's called hexokinase, and it's one of the most complex molecules that's in your body. But it must be based upon the simplest molecule that comes from glycolysis. There it is, at the top. It's based upon that, glucose. And it must be based upon glucose. That's telling you something. It's telling you a story. This is telling you something. This is extremely important to show children. You recognize that. That is the first creature on the earth which has a face. Now that seems a strange thing to say, but the proportion of where those eyes are tell you that is a face. And it must have two eyes. It's got a head and a tail, two dissimilar opposites. It's got left and right. Left and right make the head and tail, and the head and tail make left and right. It's so simple, it does not have a mouth. You could cut it up into pieces, and it will regenerate. It's called a platyhelminthes, or Canarian flatworm. And I let the children look down the microscope, and they recognize that there's a little face that can't see them, but they can see it. They can wonder about it, but it can't wonder about you. And then we get to behavior. Animals begins to build up systems, a cell, the system of life, it can then take the next step and create a system of systems. Now that would be animals, plants, and fungi. I've done the same thing again, just built a system out of the cells. And when I get to behaviour, I get a system of a system of a system. What behaviour is in animals is an uncontrollable action which they cannot stop themselves taking. And you have that inside yourself. You have an animal half that has uncontrollable forces, just the same as the forces of gravity, that make you react without thinking. You can test that the next time you're driving a car and somebody pulls out in front of you, which happens quite a lot here. You get an instant reaction. You're flooded with chemicals that say, I'm right and you're wrong. There's nothing you can do about it. Now that's going to cause a contradiction in human behaviour, which you're going to see later. You're going to rub out. The strange behaviour of human beings, it's uncontrollable, and we all do it. Ceremony. Now, our ceremonies might be different, but we're doing the same thing. I remember vividly as a small boy, sitting around the Christmas table, opening the cracker, thinking, what is this nonsense? And then my father would take out his paper hat and put it on his head. And I would go into shock thinking, what is going on here? What is everybody doing? There's a tree in the house. But it's very important nonsense if you're human. It's part of us. We love to do it. We do just the same things as the birds of paradise. It doesn't matter how stupid it is. If you grow up with it, it becomes normal. But it's extremely dangerous. You can see here, they're all doing something, and there is a force, just the same as electromagnetism, which is making them do this. And that force is called copy and conform. You just copy other people's behaviour. You think you're making a choice, but you are not. If you look at the people in the background, they're all wearing the same clothes. Now, men all wear men's clothes, and women all wear women's clothes. Who's to say? Who says what's what? It just starts. I mean, there might be somebody here wearing some women's underwear. I don't know. Well, I won't ask them to stand. It doesn't matter how strange it is. You will do it. But it's dangerous. Very dangerous. Because when copy and conform gets into this, these people will do anything that they are told to do. And that means killing people. It doesn't matter how many people you have to kill, but just get on with the job. It's dangerous. All through history, we've known what happens to societies when they get into this condition of copy and conform. Overtakes intelligence. It overrules it. That's a disaster. The history books are full of those disasters. Emotion makes things react without reason. This makes animals do the things that make them an evolutionary success. But too much success leads to overpopulation and a new set of problems. Humans have no natural weapons, so they must live in groups. There must be a force that makes them do that. Copy and conform. They are driven to be curious and compete. Now this is another force. Be curious. Wonder about something. And compete. People compete at any nonsense But these two, be curious and compete, get into a feedback loop. That means this one makes more of this one, which makes more of this one, which makes more of this one. And when that feedback loop has started, people just compete with themselves to see, to see how good they can get at something. And you can use that when you teach children. Because if they're curious about something, they want to do it, you must leave them alone. If you tell them to do it, they do something to please you. They don't care about what they are doing. This is how dangerous things become. Humans are tool makers. We make things. We cannot stop. We cannot stop competing with ourselves to see how good our tools can get. So at the same time, our tools take us to the moon. The same country will be killing peasants through an irrational fear. And you kill 3 million of them before you wake up and wonder what you are doing. An irrational war produced by an irrational fear. You've got better tools to do it, but suddenly you wake up and think, what am I doing? The First World War, 20 million people just go at each other. And the difference between the human body and a machine gun means that that will just be a slaughter. And then one day you decide to stop, ring a bell, and everybody goes home to their own country. It all starts from nonsense. One small event that generates an emotional reaction. People just keep reacting. When the killing starts, people get into an emotional state, they just keep going. It's an irrational war. There are also rational wars, like the Second World War. People turn up for the Second World War because they know they have to fight. It's too important not to. This is how irrational we are. Now, can anybody see anything wrong with these pictures? Yes. Why does the train? Yeah, why? The train's got a face. How ridiculous is that? And nobody puts their hand up and says, "What are you doing? The sun doesn't have a human face." You are completely fooled by this nonsense. It's anthropomorphic nonsense, and you are completely fooled by it. You see it every day, and you don't say, "What are you doing?" Fantasy produces the same emotions as reality. Test this next time you're watching a film. If you have fantasies in your head, it fills your body with the same emotions. It'll make you kill somebody. Those emotions are just as real as like a lion or something here fills you with emotion. A fantasy in your head can do the same thing. That's why America went to war in Vietnam. That's why the First World War in Europe, irrational fear, producing real emotions. They are very, very dangerous. A long time ago, if there was an old lady in the village and people thought she was a witch, they would burn her. The reality is, you're burning an old woman. The fantasy that generates that reality is inside your head, and it's producing real emotions which you cannot stop. It produces a paradox. And this is Lord Acton. There is no error so monstrous it does not find supporters amongst the ablest of men. There is no mistake that people's fantasy will not stop them, hold them back from engaging in. There's nothing that people have not done. It's all in the history books, from the Spanish Inquisition to Nazis. It's all there for you to see. So let's see how that comes about. This sort of nonsense. Now people, this is ridiculous. Throwing the lump of metal. What are you doing? And even worse, people pay money to go and watch throwing the lump of metal and say it has meaning, it's important. And what's he going to do when he finishes throwing the lump of metal? I'm now qualified to do what? Human beings really are not as smart as they think. This is George Orwell. To see what is in front of one's face is a constant struggle. Now, this is the end of the nonsense part of the lecture. It's always been known that one day somebody would write a mathematical equation that would be simple enough to write on a t-shirt that would describe the whole universe. 3 weeks ago, I wrote that equation. And it's on a t-shirt. 2 t-shirts, in fact. And there's somebody much more attractive than me to model it. Come on, girls. Here we are. So this is the equation which everybody has been waiting to see. SW, the strong and weak nuclear force, equals gravity times 10 to the power of 42. That's it. And that equation describes how the whole universe works. Everything. Now, I also had some help. I'm going to ask Sasa to turn around. You can see on the back here, this. Now, it was this symbol that led me to understand that the universe is made of opposites, similar opposites, electromagnetism, 2 shapes. Dissimilar opposites, the 2 colours. Well, black is not a colour, it simply means there's no energy. But when you look at this symbol, and I photographed this one in the temple, that is 3D. And that was right all along. 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, and that is 3-dimensional. So it was looking at that gave me that clue on how to do it. So later, some of you will be able to buy this t-shirt if you want. We've just printed a few of them. We're going to sell them today. I'm going to sign them. In many years, they can be worth a lot of money. So if you want to buy one, we're going to the Evergreen Hotel afterwards. I've hired the bar for 1 hour, so I have some time to talk to you and have a beer. All right, thanks very much. I have to teach you these beautiful girls, and it's really difficult because it makes your hand shake. This man here, Brian Cox, there's a mystery at the heart of science, for which, as yet, we have no explanation, and that is, this universe is simple. Underlying all the astonishing complexity appears to be a magnificent simplicity. That simple idea on the shirt of the opposites and the equation, that's the simplicity. That's how it's done. So now we're past the nonsense. Now look what happens. When you say the universe is made of relationships, now look at this. This is how it works. Simplicity, gravity over here. The strong and weak nuclear force, and electromagnetism, magnetism, the complexity, systems, quantum behavior, behavior of atoms. Number 1, classical behavior. Number 2, and electromagnetic behavior, the behavior of systems. That's here. Number 3, now it all works. It's not small and big, it's simple and complex. It works for anything. Noise. There it is. Noise. Over here, language, the most complex. And in the middle, something made of 2. Music. Rhythm and harmony. A molecule. Molecules show quantum behavior. The C60 molecule goes through both the slits. The cell, the complexity. And in the middle, something made of 2. DNA. The virus. It all works. And all the numbers. Over here, there will be something which sits by itself, and it has a dissimilar opposite. That's going to be very important later. Over here, similar opposites, odd and even, all the numbers, and in the middle, made of 2, irrational numbers. That's pi. Where the universe, the simplicity of the circle, flips over to things that have corners. Dimensions, 1, 2, 3. Now down here, there are 3 different types of matter. That's what makes us the electron. But there's also a heavy electron called a muon, and when you create it in particle accelerators, it just disappears. And there's an even heavier one called the tau. That just disappears. But they have mass. That means they have a relationship with the Higgs field. That means they create gravity, but have no interaction with us. So out there, there's lots of matter creating gravity that has no interaction with us. The people who work in particle physics have found this. And the people who look out into space have realized there's lots of matter missing. And if those 2 groups of people just spoke to each other, they would solve their own problem. You must have 3 kinds. The quark, the protons, make 3 different kinds of quarks. It has volume. There is a particle called a meson, which only has 2. It just disappears. You can't have existence without 3 dimensions. So, this now makes these predictions. Dark matter, there it is, the 3 generations of matter, the 2 generations of matter. That problem's solved. Dark energy, gravity, must have a dissimilar opposite partner. Einstein knew this. There must be something causing the universe to continue expanding. Or gravity would make it stop and just pull it all back together. So he put it into his equations, and he called it the cosmological constant. And he said it was his biggest mistake. But logic is ruthless. If you don't have that into the equations collapse. It tells you what a black hole is. There must be a singularity for each force, and there is. The singularity, where there's so much gravity, it simply overcomes the other 2 forces and goes down into a singularity. The strong force has a singularity called the quark. The electromagnetic force has a singularity called the electron. And the electron has a dissimilar partner, the neutrino. Now this is you. This is how people work. You're on the same, 1, 2, 3. This is how all human beings work. But remember, people have a different mix of the same chemicals. Some people get big emotional reactions, some don't. Over here, this is your animal self. Emotion only, no choice. The reaction that you get when somebody pulls out in front of you, or somebody says something to you, like, I want you to do that now. And people like me, I cannot do it, I won't do it. Because somebody's telling me to do it, I get this big reaction that says, no, you're using authority over me. I'm not going to do it. Some children don't get that in the class, but you can soon see who does. And then there's your rational choice over here. As you become more experienced in life, you start to get rational. You can make a choice. But this is the contradiction that causes so much trouble. If somebody tries to remove your choice, you get an emotional reaction against that, and you have no choice. I get a big one, other people get a small one. So now you can say there's one rule for all human beings. No authority. No human being must tell another human being what to do. Now I use this rule already in the classroom, and the results are absolutely amazing. It's hands off, and you would think it's going to be chaos. All the children calm down. just start to be self-reliant. Now, we've got a couple of teachers here who watched this happening. So I'd like to ask Christina and Karen just to say in 1 minute what effect it has in their own classrooms.
You want me to speak in Chinese or English?
Well, you could choose.
Okay, I use my mother tongue. 上 Teacher Peter 的课，小孩子都很兴奋。Kids are so excited they are expecting Teacher Peter's science class. 然后呢，Teacher Peter 的理论，这个我们在课堂上的确有听到，但是是用 simple words， 他是用简单的话教。所以我有一天问我们班的孩子，嘿，你听得懂 Teacher Peter 在教的所有的 science 的内容吗？那个小女孩跟我说，哈 ，Teacher， 你为什么问我这个问题？我懂啊。然后我再问她第二个问题，那你带回家的 notebook science notebook， 爸爸妈妈懂吗？爸爸妈妈不懂，但是我懂。我觉得 Teacher Peter 教的这些东西，我很佩服。我很希望他有一天能够上 TED， 能够看到 Teacher Peter 在那个电视上。我也很佩服他能够想出这一些新的理论。那他讲到那个在班上，他用这个理论如何去管理一个班级。那我亲眼看见，因为在他的班，我不需要花时间去做那个班级经营。他小孩子的 behavior 都非常好，非常专注。所以我从他的教学，这种 science 的教学，的确是翻转了我们的教育系统。因为几年前呢，他问说，小孩子听得懂 DNA 的教学吗？我几年前我跟他说，小一新生应该听不懂啊。可是他现在正在教，然后孩子都听得懂，而且就在上个礼拜发生的事哦。Teacher Peter 有一个小小的考试，那个考试是没有经过复习，我也没有复习，他就是出了5题 DNA 的一些题目跟那些比较复杂的，就是刚刚那些理论把它简化的。大部分的孩子都是100分，让我觉得很惊讶。那个随堂测验让我觉得太惊讶。那如果那个东西如果拿在大学生，应该是可以听得懂的。所以他的那个教学是很创新的，因为我每次都跟他说，他的这种教学法呢是要等到大学生才懂的。可是我们威格小孩子1年级的小孩子竟然能够懂哦。所以听 Teacher Peter 上课是一个享受。我很希望我小学的时候就有这样子的 science 的老师。谢谢。
I think that was enough actually because we're running out of time. Is that all right? Give me 30 minutes.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay.
大家好，我是 Karen 哦，我跟 Teacher Peter 一起配课很多年了。那在课程方面就像刚刚 Teacher Christina 讲的 ，Teacher Peter 会用很多深入浅出的方式。那像刚刚 DNA 那个部分，它是用小朋友的积木层层叠起，然后带给那个教小朋友 DNA 的观念。那在课堂上，他也会用看那个显微镜观察的方式，说故事的方式。画图的方式给孩子做这样子的了解。那在班级经营的部分呢，就像Teacher Peter 一开始讲的，孩子都习惯老师跟他说你做这个，然后小朋友再跟着做。那现在 Teacher Peter 呢，他会比如说上课在抄笔记的时候，让小朋友自己选一页，然后把它抄下来。可是小朋友刚开始会好不习惯，因为他们会很担心，万一写错怎么办？那是真的是这样子写吗？所以刚开始就会很像老师讲的是 chaos behavior， 就是闹哄哄的，会问很多问题。那可是后来当他们知道说，他们是真的可以自己选一页，然后把它抄下来，他们都很珍惜自己有这样子的一个，好像是一个自主权，然后他们就会认认真真的选一页空白的，然后好好的把笔记抄下来，而且写的字很漂亮，而且抄的速度比我们好像规定小朋友要写在第几页的速度还要快，那这个就带给我蛮大的震撼。那也让我提醒自己说，好像应该要给孩子更多的空间，让他们可以去发挥他们的创意，那自然的孩子就会有更棒的表现。 谢谢大家。
So I'm just letting you read this. I'm going to teach this to people later, but it's going to be my secret how to actually do it for a little bit longer. We waste most of our time working very hard at the wrong thing. We all know we're doing it, but until somebody comes up with the answer, we have to do it. Now we don't have to do it anymore. This is a great one. Science test for children of 7 years old. Just see how many questions you can answer. The children do the test, and I remember Bart saying to me, the children are all going to get 0, and they all get 100. So they'll get 1 wrong, but that's it. It's knowing how the human brain works. So this is a trademark. This has been set up. Somebody, and I hope it's going to be in this school, is going to buy that trademark. And then they become the training centre for the whole earth, so that people go to that centre and start to be trained on how to teach children like that. The children are now like going like this, they suddenly go like that. They go up sky high and just leave everybody else trailing in their wake. Everybody is going to want that. So you cannot put this outside your school unless you go to that training centre. So now we're coming to the end of the lecture. And really, now you've seen all this, you can't remember it all, but everything that we said today now makes sense. And because we're going to now raise a generation of human beings who all know why they are doing things. They stop doing nonsense. That period of chaotic behaviour that fills the history books finishes, and it starts today with you. The first time that somebody shows other human beings this, and you will take this away, and it will fill your head. You will want to tell other people what you've seen. So I'm going to finish with a few words from history. Not so long ago, somebody said, I have a dream. I was a small boy, but I heard that dream. And now, I've made that dream come true. This is it. This is how it's done. And you are the people here today who started all going. We've done it. Really, we've done it. This is it. Thank you. Oh, I need beer. If we go to the Evergreen, we've got the whole place to ourselves at the front for 1 hour. We can have a coffee. We're going to sell some t-shirts. Come along, because I'd love to speak to you. Oh, I need a lift, because I don't want to drink and drive.